news here at CBS Sports HQ, where Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson is turning pro and entering the NFL draft. That's the latest from our Matt Zenitz there. Simpson was named second-team All-SEC this season with the Tide and throwing for 28 touchdowns and just 5 interceptions in his first and only season as a starter. He led the Tide to the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. And Simpson is the third-ranked quarterback in our CBSSports.com prospect rankings. But when it comes to that mock draft and where he can land, oh, look at this. Ryan Wilson is back and busy. I'm not sure if this is the first mock. I'm pretty sure it's like 56 or 57. But take a look at that. Ty Simpson going 5th overall out to Arizona and maybe being that replacement there for Kyler Murray out of Alabama to the desert. Speaking of the man himself, Ryan Wilson tapping in on this breaking news. And Ryan, obviously this is not a surprise to you, but this news coming out about Ty Simpson heading to play on Sundays.
Hey, Brandon, good to see you as always. So a little bit surprising in the sense that Ty Simpson got off to a red-hot start to begin the 2025 season for Alabama. And halfway through the year, when he was absolutely balling, I thought he was a more souped-up version of Mac Jones when he was coming out. And Mac Jones, of course, led Alabama to the national title, ended up being the 15th overall pick in that draft class. Bigger arm, better athlete, processed just as well, makes incredibly good decisions with the football. He is as technical as they come on short and intermediate throws. The issue, Brandon, was this. Once he pushed the ball more than 30 yards down the field, he became not only average, he became historically one of the worst deep ball passers going back to the Joe Burrow draft in 2019. And the only other quarterback down there with him at the bottom of that list, Garrett Nussmeier, who went from first-round possibility over the summer to potential day 3 pick as we sit here. Here's the addendum to that story, Brandon, and probably has something to do with Ty's decision to come out after talking to some NFL teams that presumably told him he will be a top 32 pick. Talking to some folks at Alabama, that South Carolina game in October, Ty tweaked his back. It wasn't anything serious, but it affected his ability to push the ball down the field, and that may have informed the struggles he had with deep balls. So everything else within 30 yards was everything you want to see from an NFL quarterback. If NFL teams are comfortable with his ability to push the ball down the field when he's healthy, then this feels like a layup in terms of his decision to leave Alabama and declare for the NFL draft.
I'm hearing a lot of pros and cons when it comes to Ty Simpson. That's why he's number 3 behind, of course, Dante Moore, Fernando Mendoza when it comes to those QBs, and also going 5th in your draft. But is this more of him maybe taking advantage of what we've been calling maybe a weak QB class here?
100%. And, yeah. I mentioned Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller, Cade Klubnik. All those young men returned to school instead of declaring for last year's draft when they probably would have gotten drafted higher than what they may end up getting drafted this year. They all had average to below average seasons. Some suffered injuries. Garrett Nussmeier and Drew Aller in particular. Drew Aller lost the last half of his season. And I think Ty Simpson is striking while the iron is, as producer Tully called it, lukewarm. I talked about his struggles down the field. But you look at these numbers here, and again, when you watch him on short and intermediate throws, his ability to throw the ball on time, to throw with anticipation, to play in what feels like an NFL offense at the next level, those things are extremely enticing and encouraging. And all that taken together, I think you do come out if the understanding is that you weren't 100%, and when you are 100%, you can take it to the next level. And I'll just say this, Brandon, had he not gotten hurt and had he played to the level over the second half of the season that we saw over the first half of the season, he would be in consideration for QB1 because there were a lot of folks that were really intrigued with the way he played before he started to slip the second half of the season with Alabama.
Well, let me ask you this. What kind of separates him from the top 2 guys there based on what you've seen this year in his only start as a starter?
So Fernando Mendoza has he's played a ton of ball both at Cal and Indiana. He won the Heisman, obviously. He's going to be QB1. There will be some teams that are intrigued by Dante Moore as QB1, but like Ty, Dante has not played a lot of football. 1 year started at Oregon, played at an extremely high level, but teams are going to want to see consistency from 1 year to the next, and you're just not going to get it with Dante and Ty should Dante also choose to declare for the draft. That said, I think Dante's going to be 1B, and then it'll be Ty. Now, Ty Simpson, as you saw in my mock draft, I had him going 5 to the Cardinals. They're going to have to hire a new head coach, and they got to figure out what's going on with Kyler Murray. It could be a situation where he falls to 15, sort of like Mac Jones did, bottom half of the first round. But listen, I'm going to tell you, be careful, because if you let this man go to the L.A. Rams and Matthew Stafford plays one more year, the Rams are going to be set for another 10 years. So if you need a quarterback and you're picking in the top 10 and you're a bad football team, you're going to have to give serious consideration to taking him. I think it's going to be 3 quarterbacks in the first round. I would be absolutely floored if a 4th quarterback makes their way way into this conversation by the time it's all said and done, Brandon.
I want to go back to your mock draft because, as you said, you have them there going 5th to Arizona. When you think about it, yes, Kyler Murray is still in place. But if you are bringing in a Ty Simpson, is this a competition, Ryan, you think? Or will Simpson just flat out take the job and we're seeing Kyler Murray go somewhere else?
Yeah, they're going to have to figure out how to pay Kyler's deal. That's going to have to be something they're going to have to sort through. But here, I'll ask the question rhetorically. You don't have to answer it, Brandon. But if you get benched for Jacoby Brissett, who is in the sunset years of his NFL career, it stands to reason that if you bring in a dude with the 5th overall pick, that dude is going to be playing unless something goes sideways during training camp and preseason. And don't forget, the year before Kyler was drafted, the Cardinals traded up to get Josh Rosen, and that was a one-and-done deal. They shipped him off to Miami, and then Kyler was their guy. It feels like it's run the course with Kyler in Arizona unless they hire a coach who feels like he can fix them. And if you're taking a quarterback that high, and we're living in a world where those guys play sooner rather than later. One last thing I'll mention, by the way, picking 6, the Cleveland Browns, it feels like, even though they have 2 first-round picks, so much money still tied up in Deshaun Watson. Drafting those 2 rookies last season in rounds 3 and rounds 5, it feels like they're going to be off a quarterback unless something crazy happens that's unforeseen as we sit here right now.
Ryan, you've done so many of these when it comes to mock drafts, and I don't know if this is, I mentioned off a joke of 56 or you may be at 100 now, but when it comes to this QB class, you know, what is the identity that you notice about this group? Because we talk about it all the time that this isn't, you know, a generational talent group when it comes to QBs. What have you noticed about them?
It just goes to show, and it reinforces what we say every year, Brandon. Everyone thought in August that this was going to be a transformative quarterback class. Arch Manning's going to do this. Garrett Nussmeier's going to do that. Carson Beck is going to rediscover himself in Miami. Well, Arch Manning's going back to school. Garrett Nussmeier got hurt and maybe a day 3 pick. Carson Beck sort of was the general of the offense, but he didn't take over like folks were expecting when he was the 1st overall prospect 18 months ago. So I think the lesson is this. If you need a quarterback and you love one of these players, as we sit here, we're now 106 days from the NFL draft, you better draft them this year because you cannot plan into the future beyond the next 100 days because here, what's going to happen? Coaches get fired. GMs get fired. Quarterbacks you thought were good end up getting injured or not playing up to expectations. Some of them return to school. Some of them go in the portal and make $5 million a year. So this quarterback class, it's going to be on par with last year's quarterback class where we saw Cam Ward go 1st overall. Then the Giants trade back up to 25 to get Jackson Dart. And you might make an argument by the time it's all said and done, Brandon, that last year's class ends up being better than this year's class as we sit here. So if you need a quarterback and you like the young man, you better draft him now because you never know what the future holds given the volatility that is the NFL.
We're assuming he got a high draft grade because it's the reason why he's making this news today. But could he be one of those guys that shows up at the combine like, I don't need to throw. You guys have the tape. You know, maybe in my pro day. Could we see that from him?
100%. And we live in a world now where agents make sure that their clients are in the best possible light. There's very little upside, fair or not. And C.J. Stroud went and threw at the combine, and he did a great job. He ended up still being the number 2 overall pick. Bryce didn't throw at the combine, and we talked to him about it on set, and he said exactly what you said, Brandon. I'm going to go to my pro day, and I'll put on a show there. And he did. He ended up being the 1st overall pick, but there's certainly a conversation to be had whether Bryce or C.J. is the better quarterback. I think C.J., over the totality of his career, is probably outplayed Bryce by a little bit, but these guys are not going to put themselves in a position to have anything bad happen to them that was not planned. If it's out of their control, they're going to wait to the pro day, and we've seen it time and time again. Ideally, you would like to see these guys take advantage of every opportunity, but we live in a world now, Brandon, where everything is so controlled that they're going to say, you know what, I'll see you at the pro day. You can choose to be there or not, but that's where you can find me.
Exactly. Just measure how short my hands are and see how tall I am, and I'll see you guys on my pro day there. As always, Ryan Wilson tapping in his